Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Club. So, let's talk about some movies.
That's right, and today we're going to be talking about Scream 4.
Yes, to continue on with our Scream Retrospective. We're watching Scream 4 today, and, overall, not shit. Not as shit as I thought it would be.
Well, also, this is the first time you've ever seen Scream 4, which was surprising for me, because I thought you've seen it on TV and on DVD.
Well, actually, I had seen this movie once before, but I had completely forgotten it. So it was like watching it all over again. Because I realized I saw this movie probably when it came out, and then just purged it from my memory for some reason, which I don't really understand, because the movie's not actually that bad.
No, I really like this movie. I know you're impartial to most things, so...
I'll say that the last act of this movie is awful, like so bad, but everything after that is pretty good. It's got its issues, yeah. Yeah, it's got issues. But yeah, what about you? Did you see this movie in theaters?
I did not. None of my friends were really into horror back then, so I ended up missing this and saw it on TV. Really loved it. And it's, high up there on my list.
It's high up in the Booze Scream list.
Yes.
But who in this movie makes the Booze hottie playlist of the Scream franchise?
I don't know if there's anyone that makes the list.
Ooh, man. Is this finally where it's broken? Because we even had a hottie in Scream 3.
We did. With Cotton Weary. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'd have to go Deputy Dewey.
Deputy Dewey?
Oh, sorry. Sheriff Dewey.
Sheriff Dewey. I mean, David Arquette in this movie does look 10 years younger.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
Than he did in Scream 3. It is really weird.
Yeah. So it's interesting to kind of see that, Deputy Dewey. Not Deputy. Sheriff Dewey. He's got the cool hat. He's got the glasses.
Yeah.
I guess he's my hottie pick of this film.
Yes, married to Courtney Cox.
Yeah, they were still married at this... Oh, no.
They had divorced at this point, but they were... It's weird. All the movies where they were actually married, they were not married. And now when they're divorced, now their characters are married.
Yeah. You get the feeling that, they're married, and part of Gale's storyline is she's given up, her journalist career to be this, housewife in a small town and an author.
And be jealous over Deputy Judy.
Oh, Judy. Judy's got the hots for the sheriff.
Can we talk about Judy? Okay, we're going to get to Judy, because Judy is super creepy. She's the red herring of this movie.
Also, we're jumping into the movie. We're going to start with characters first.
Yes, because this movie wants you to know that it's commentating on the reboot sequel craze that was really big at the time, because that was basically what happened in, the mid-2000s, 2010s. Was you would get, reboots and remakes of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Last House on the Left, I Spit on Your Grave, Friday the 13th. I can do this. Nightmare on Elm Street. You get all these different reboot, remakes, retreads of these old movies, and Scream 4's whole meta commentary is about how all those remakes fucking suck.
And we still have the original director, some of the original cast members.
The original writer,
And I think this is the only horror franchise where they've done that, where it's been the same director the entire time and some of the same cast members. It hasn't been done before.
Well, the same director, that's absolutely true. Especially for, any major franchise, because Hellraiser, Clive Barker's out after the first two, I think. John Carpenter, he only ever directed the first one.
Yeah.
Even with Nightmare on Elm Street, Wes Craven did the first one and the very last one of the original canon. And Friday the 13th, all the directors only directed one of them. Yeah. And it's just interesting, because Wes Craven does have a style. He's not super flashy, but he has a style. He comes with that old school exploitation cinema sense. And
you don't always need, the flashbang, over the top. It's like, no, sometimes a simple story makes the most impact.
Yeah, and with Wes Craven, we did have this discussion where you would lovingly say he had a 50-50 career, right? Half great movies, half bad movies. Admirable happens to a lot. That's most filmmakers.
Yeah, but when I remember him, I don't think of the bad movies. I just think of the good movies.
Well, yeah, I understand that. you don't remember the missed catches, all right?
Yeah.
But with Wes Craven, this being his last film, because he passed away afterwards, I'm thinking, is this in the camp of one of his masterpieces or one of his duds? Because it does work up until that last half.
I mean, I don't classify this as a masterpiece. I classify Scream as a masterpiece, but this, I think it's a really great movie.
It's good.
And it's good. It's a good way, it's a good film to end on. I mean, not that we want him gone, rest in peace. He was taken too soon, but I think this was a good movie to end on. He got to be with his original cast again. We get to go back home to Woodsboro. Mm-hmm. We get to see how, on the anniversary of the original murders, there's a resurgence. It's happening again. People are taking the same footsteps, but they're bringing it with a modern twist.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the whole meta commentary going on in the film, where a lot of what those movies was we're going to take the beats from the original and just update it a little bit, right? Granted, the updating effect also made all of this ring so hollow. And not this movie in particular. My big gripe is everybody's now into we're going to stream the movies, man, on the net. Every time Neve Campbell says, "Oh, you're going to put it on the net," I cringe so hard you can make diamonds, I swear.
I mean, she is Canadian, so maybe that's what the Canadians say, the net.
The net, eh? It's the internet, eh?
Maybe.
But yeah, so the actual movie, the characters, we have our main trio. We have Sid, we have Gale, we have Dewey, and then we have the body count.
Yeah.
Which is everybody who's not the main three, because that's how these movies work, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
And they try their best to make a new Randy character, and you have, your three you want to pick from.
Yeah.
What is it? You have Bobby, you have Charlie, and you have Kirby.
Kirby, yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, why do you have to kill fucking Randy? That was a decision they have been regretting since Scream 2.
Oh, absolutely. They wanted to bring him back in Scream 3, and it's just like, I don't see how I could bring him back when he was stabbed so many times and found dead.
You made a big point of him being gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then you got Scream 4. We have our Sid surrogate, played by her cousin Jill, that didn't appear in any of these other movies, and I find complete bullshit. Sid does not have any fucking aunts or cousins. Fuck that. That's a terrible line.
I mean, I thought it was a little weird and how it never came up, but yeah, she's got family in this movie. A deleted scene, actually, from this movie is that Sydney's dad has passed away, and that's why she's come back to town with her book tour. So I thought, really they could have kind of played at that angle where maybe they did a funeral scene, and this aunt shows up, and it's like, well, I've never known that I had an aunt. And
everybody's got secrets.
Yeah, and so that would kind of play more into the storyline of Jill, who, should we just, spoil our killers right off the bat?
I mean, the killers don't make any fucking sense, so, might as well.
Yeah, so we have her cousin Jill, who is killer number 1, and we have Charlie, who we'll later talk about, who's killer number 2, and this is the movie where they actually go back to 2 killers. It's not like Scream 3, where there's only 1 killer.
It's like Scream 2, but here's the part of the movie that annoys the shit out of me, is their motives are garbage. Their motives are complete garbage, and
they're juvenile.
Well, it's not even juvenile, no, it's nonsensical.
Well, no, it's
Jill's motive is completely nonsensical. What is her reasoning?
It's juvenile when you hear her saying, "I'm killing all these people so that I could be the sole survivor because I need followers." In a day and age where we live off of, yes, I need more followers to get my page to explode.
She wanted the fame of the survivor girl, right? But it's like, that is such a non-reason. Like, the fuck, lady?
Especially when
her plan is shit.
Especially when we have Sydney in the beginning of the movie talking about her book, because Sydney's an author now, and she's back in Woodsboro for a book tour, and she's talking about how, yes, she's been called the victim, the survivor girl, and she's kind of showing how I choose not to be labeled as this. I'm living my life as a regular person versus, oh, poor thing, you've been through the ringer. It's like, no, I want to be normal. And Jill's very much, no, I want the spotlight, and people, oh, poor thing, that's amazing, tell me your life story.
I guess it's just, no, I'm not gonna say I guess. No, it's still a bad reason. I think Jill's entire motivation is horrible.
Yeah, I mean...
that's why the third act of this doesn't work for me.
That and, Jill's never been one of my favorite killers.
She's not because it... Okay, there's also the big Julia Roberts-shaped elephant in the room named Emma Roberts.
Yeah, who's the daughter of Eric Roberts, Julia Roberts' brother.
Yeah, it's the one thing where it's Emma Roberts, I don't want to, besmirch her career. I'm sure she's fine in a lot of movies, but in this, she's not putting in A-quality work, right?
No, I mean, it was a twist the first time I saw it, because I was just oh, she's the killer, and then it was kind of oh, we actually have our first female Ghostface, but it was kind of okay. I'm alright, I mean, she really didn't strike me as oh, wow, I take it back. She is not the first female Ghostface. Mrs. Loomis is.
Yeah.
In Scream 2.
Exactly.
So it's
But she also doesn't sell it very well.
No.
It all comes out as not very convincing and not very... Okay, that's just going through the whole, the climax of the movie is going to be a whole section of this conversation.
Yeah, it's going to be a big part of the movie.
We should probably build up everything that comes before it.
Yeah.
So, how does this movie begin?
Let's see. So the movie starts with 2 false starts.
Yes, which, no lie, I liked those because they were so meta that they went from being, oh, that's good, to that's just funny. It's just a comedy at that point. And I think that's kind of the point they were getting at, is at a certain point horror films stop being scary, they start being funny.
That, and being a Wes Craven film, he always has a bit of comedy in his movies. Even with Nightmare on Elm Street, it still has its comedic beats in it. So it's kind of nice to, it's not going to be somber or, scary. No, I mean, they actually make you laugh. And we get the 2 false starts at the beginning, which takes us into the first 2 murders of the film.
Yeah.
Which is even funny when the blonde girl, picks up the phone and he's like, well, you're the blonde, girl with the big tits that's gonna run up the stairs. The stupid blonde girl. And she's like, I have a 4.0 and my, IQ is this. And it's okay, alright, we're getting progressive, we're switching it up, it's not,
And she's still gonna fucking die, because she's still the dumb blonde with big tits running up the stairs.
She dies, she gets crushed by the garage door, we get our homage to Tatum, which I did do some research, so with Tatum, everyone knows that the garage door would not have gone up with the weight of her body.
Yeah, so it crushes her, and it's a whole deal.
But with these new garage doors, that, the one that crushes her spine, that's actually factual, that the door will kind of malfunction if something gets in the way. So if he hadn't have pulled her, it would have just kept crushing her back.
Yeah.
And I was okay, I like that we kind of kept the realism in the movie. But, again, I feel like you needed to watch the deleted scenes, because they go back in the house and they show kind of what Ghostface has done with them. And it's really brutal. I mean,
I did see because I watched the version that's on Showtime, I think, and I did see the gory aftermath and all that stuff, but
where they have her hanging from the fan and in the living room, or not the living room.
Oh, that one I didn't see. I saw I guess it was Olivia later. I didn't see their aftermath. I just saw that one was a production still.
Yeah, I felt like they needed to show that scene, not for the gore, but they have in blood, what's your favorite scary movie written across the counters in the kitchen. So it's I felt like that was kind of opening up with, these are reboot killings.
Yeah, I mean, again, this whole franchise is just extra meta, and this opening is extra meta. That it's also just one of those things where it's surprising to see a Scream 4 10 years after the last one. This series was truly fucking dead. And it is interesting to see it have so many homages and so many moments in this opening sequence to, okay, yeah, the Stab franchise. That the internal monologue of the film commentating on itself. And also, I wanted to see Stab 5. They said there's time travel in that. What the fuck? Is the Stab series just Hellraiser? Does it get to Hellraiser's levels of ridiculous?
No, I think the Stab trilogy, or not even trilogy, what is it?
It's just 7 films. It's 7 films, I counted.
Okay, so the Stab franchise, I think, is supposed to kind of mirror the Nightmare franchise. And there's a joke in there when they're talking about the Stab movie, the time travel one. That's actually kicking it back to one of the Nightmare movies where Wes Craven wanted to add time travel into the movie, and then the studio was like, you're not fucking doing that. That's not going to happen.
Jesus.
So that was like his own little private joke of, well, I had this idea and it didn't work, so we're going to put it in this movie and have that movie be like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
And then Dean's just, I'm dying to see it.
I want to see this. I want to see
a time-traveling stabber.
That sounds fascinating. But yeah, that's one of those things with the Stab franchise, because it's in its own internal monologue about, long-running slasher franchises that just become ridiculous. But the kill itself that you mentioned, it's crushing her. It's like, oh man, it's throwback to Tatum, and it's like, oh, it's already, doing the throwbacks to everything else. But I have a question about the layout of this house. So she runs up a flight of stairs.
Yeah, I don't get that either.
And she opens a hall door that leads into a long, unfinished hallway of like boards, exposed wiring, and
that leads into a garage.
Yeah, and what she's running into looks like almost like an unfinished like
barn.
And then she runs down another flight of stairs, or gets thrown down another flight of stairs into a drop down garage, and I'm like, and they're in a house. They're not in an apartment building. They're in like somebody's home, and I'm like, what layout of this is? What kind of house is this?
I mean, unless it was going to be like some office that's part of the garage or some band space. I don't know. It just didn't make any sense because
the house looks fucking huge because it looked like a whole floor of the house was just not there.
Well, that, and from what we see of the house is pretty much complete. It's furnished, and then we just have this space that's not. But the garage is furnished.
The garage is like more or less done. I mean, the stairs look hobbled together. I'm wondering if they could only afford to film in like one house, and then they were like, well, it doesn't have the stairs in the right place, it doesn't have the garage in the right place, so we'll just throw stairs in the corner and hide the fact that there's no second story of this, and we'll just shoot it there.
It could be.
But it's really weird when you try and follow the layout of this opening kill.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing to figure out how this house is laid out and why she would go that way.
What else is super confusing is these fucking killers, because goddamn it, this killer is like 6'5". Neither of our killers are over 5'8".
Yeah, that was an issue for me. I'm like, they're fairly short.
Also, they're not. I could not see a universe where Sid could not 1v1 Charlie.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
Well, I mean, there's that scene when Jill's friend is being murdered across the street from her house.
Yeah, Olivia, I think.
Olivia, and she runs across and she's fighting with Ghostface on the stairs. In the bloopers, because, she picks up the picture off the wall and smacks Ghostface in the face. In the bloopers, she does that with, like, the breakaway poster. I mean, she rocks this guy, who's ever the stunt actor, and they had to call it cuts as she's just touching the mask. Oh my god, are you okay? So when you see it in the movie, it's like, yeah, she's giving it, full swing, and I'm like,
I give credit to these stunt performers because some of them take a fucking beating for these like slasher flicks. I know like Kane Hodder, who played Jason, and I think 6, 7, and 8, like that guy was lit on fire. He almost like killed himself falling through a flight of stairs, and like these guys go through a shit ton of
not
pain
just
and
horror, in all genres. I mean, these people are true heroes because, man, they do some crazy things, and God willing, they're able to get up after it. When they do, it's amazing. It's like, are you invincible? Yeah. But character-wise, she gives Ghostface an ass kicking, and it's just like, how is Charlie or Jill gonna survive this?
Oh God, yes. I mean, let's move on, because again, that's gonna be the long talk when we get to that climax. Are you okay? Do you need some tea? Everybody wish her well. She doesn't have the Rona. She just has a cough. But moving on, we have after this Dewey and Gale showing up, or we have Dewey's reveal that he's the sheriff now, and he's gonna investigate. And Sid shows up into town, and it's like, oh man, things are happening now, and they plant the weapon in Sydney's car at her book signing.
And Gale is at home trying to write her new book, because she doesn't write true crime anymore. She's writing fiction.
Also, Gale seems like a horrible writer, because she's like, Ah, man. Also, these murders are Gale's godsend. Because she's like, I can't really write fiction. I can only really do true crime. But none of the true crime around me I can actually write about unless I'm directly involved in it. Maybe I could convince some teenagers to go on a killing spree so I can write about it.
Also, I'm thinking, in Scream 5, does she, move from former true crime writer to fiction to now true crime podcaster?
Oh, God.
I can see it happening. She's got plenty of stories to talk about.
Gale would be that level of attention whore. I say, being a podcaster myself, absolute attention whore over here.
You can follow us at the Film Club Podcast on Instagram.
Attention whores. But, yeah, it's just interesting to see where all the characters are at now.
Yeah.
Right? Because we have Sydney. She's moved on from the trauma of Scream 3. And the Scream 3 ending, I think, is actually a really good tie-up to her character arc, even though Scream 3 as a movie is inherently not a very good movie.
Yeah, it's nice to see her finally feel some sense of peace.
Yeah, and then we have Gale, who, fuck Gale in general, but she gets her comeuppance where it's like, okay, now she can't profit off of the pain of others, and then it's like, okay, Dewey, playing the nice guy, he got the girl, and he becomes sheriff, so he finally gets appreciated.
Yeah.
And it is nice to see where they're at now, and now the killer traps them, quote-unquote, in the town. None of them can leave. Plants the weapon in Sid's car. She can't leave town, even though everybody already knows. They all point out that, oh, this is a way to get to Sydney, right? But you're a suspect. We can't let you leave. And I'm like, guys, this has happened 3 fucking times.
Yeah.
You know she's not a suspect. You know she's gonna get stabbed.
And they know that she's not a suspect. It's just kind of like, we've got to figure this out together.
And they put fucking Beavis and Butthead as the fucking cops to watch her.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I got some issues with these fucking guys. Because they're the worst cops on the planet. And they comment about how they're gonna die. And one of them, their last words are, "Fuck Bruce Willis." No, sir. Fuck you.
I knew you would have some distaste towards that.
It's one of those things where, the whole cops talking about in a super meta way of how they're gonna die because look,
the cops always die in the movies.
Cops always die in the movie unless you're named Bruce Willis, or it's like, look, unless you're the handsome one and your partner's butt ugly because your ugly partner's gonna die before you, or it's like, hey, unless you're in a relationship with the main girl, you're gonna die, and blah blah blah, all these super meta technical things, and then they both just get stabbed and it's over. It's one quip and then they die,
and it's not like even 2 different scenes. It's the same scene.
Yeah, and that's my problem with a lot of this movie is some of the kills in this are like, it's like really visceral and it really gets to you, and it's like, oh, that's really horrifying. Or it's like the publicist kill where it's the whole build up and she's in the car and Ghostface is stalking her and she's all this other stuff. And then she runs away, and you're like, oh my god, what's gonna happen? And she gets stabbed in the stomach, and it's over.
Yeah.
You're teasing me, people. Like you're edging me for 5 hours, and it's over. You ruined my time.
Are you okay over there?
Sorry, I have issues with some things, but we'll move on. We'll move on. So, after we introduce where the characters we like are, now we meet all the characters we don't like, and also Kirby, because I like Kirby. Kirby's fun.
I mean, Dean wants to marry Kirby.
No, but if Hayden Panettiere went to my high school, I would call shot. All right,
you would have been Mr. Panettiere or Panettiere.
Yes, absolutely. So would you. Don't even act like you wouldn't. All right.
I mean, she's cool, but I don't.
Look, if you went to high school with Skeet Ulrich, you would be Mrs. Ulrich. Let's be real.
More or less.
Oh, of course. But there we meet our body count for this movie, right? Jill and her friends.
Yeah.
They have 3 separate Randy surrogates, like we said before.
Yeah.
We have Bobby and Charlie, which are the weird, nerdy film club guys who one of them is live streaming his life?
Pretty much. It's called Hall Pass, I think, his channel or whatever, so he just films everything, and, Day of the Murders, what's your favorite scary movie? And it's just like, shut up, 2 people have been killed, I don't care. And Charlie, creepy.
Yeah, Charlie's whole bit is that he's in love with Kirby, and he's he's just a socially awkward nerd guy
Mm-hmm.
that gives the rules in the movie, right? He's set up as the Randy surrogate, and then Kirby is like Kirby to me felt the most like a normal Scream character. Like, I could see her existing in Screams like 1 and 2 as a character.
That, and she also felt like the most realistic character in the movie, where it's like, yeah, you know, she could possibly pass for like a popular kid at school, but she also has this love for horror, so she's got like layers to her.
Yeah. I mean, it's also a thing. I'm a huge fan of Hayden Panettiere from like Heroes, and I played Until Dawn, and she's one of the actors in that. And, you know, I'm a fan of her work, and she's a good actress.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not going to besmirch the actors who were playing Bobby and Charlie, but, you know, they're turning in performances that are, you know, serviceable. They're not as bad as Emma Roberts, I'll say that. But yeah, you know, it's just everybody else. But none of them really rub me the wrong way, like Deputy Judy.
Yeah, Deputy Judy is a character, all right.
Yeah. Is Deputy Judy crazy?
She gives off the crazy eyes sometimes, and then she's always, I got lemon squares, and it's just like, no, that's okay. I don't know what you did to those lemon squares.
Oh, when she meets Sid for the first time?
Yeah, and even with Dewey. Oh, but
why is she standing in the dark hallway and emerges from the shadows after Sid is done having a heart-to-heart with Jill over her like shitty boyfriend Trevor?
Yeah, that's one of those scenes where it just kind of catches you off guard because you're like, oh my god, it could be Ghostface, and it's like, Deputy Judy? And then she's like, do you remember me from high school? And she's listening all these things, and Sydney's just like, God, no, I don't remember you, and I'm so sorry, but you just scared the shit out of me.
Sydney's like, please don't kill me.
Yeah.
I've had this situation happen to me far too often.
Yes. It's nothing new to me, but I don't want it to happen again.
Yeah. Oh. But yeah, so we get introduced to our full cast of characters and body count.
And we also meet Jill's ex-boyfriend.
Trevor.
Who
you go ahead, because I have a thing about Trevor.
You have a thing about Trevor?
Yes.
Which, you know, early on he's kind of in the Billy character. You know, he comes through Jill's window. Mm-hmm. You know, he's always popping up, you know, after some of these attacks, and it's like, oh no, it's happening again. You know, we have young Sydney that's supposed to be Jill, and we've got Billy coming through the window. And even I loved Neve Campbell's performance when, you know, she meets Trevor for the first time and he leaves back out the window, and just kind of that
deja vu,
but also fear, you know, like history's repeating itself and it's going to happen to my younger cousin.
And that's like the meta theme of the movie, right? It's the reboot, and it's going to hit all the same beats as these things do.
Is this the passing of the torch?
Yeah, and it's Sydney, and the whole meta commentary is Sydney's watching basically the first Scream film play out in front of her, and she's like, okay, well, I'm watching the remake. Yeah. Basically. And she's like, well, and here's my thing about Trevor. Trevor is not nearly as interesting a red herring as Derek was in Scream 2. Yeah. Because at least, like, to me, he is at the level of red herring that Billy was, which is, he was not a red herring, he was just red flag. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't really care that much about Trevor, because I don't know anything about him other than he's obsessed with Jill. Yeah. And I mean, it's just not really there for me.
No, and I mean, he is the red herring of the movie, where you're supposed to think, oh, he's one of the killers, he's always disappearing, oh, he has these messages on his phone to be here, he's showing up at things, and ultimately, he's not. Yeah. He's just an innocent bystander, and it's just like, the way he dies is very brutal.
Yeah. It's rough. Yeah. Gentlemen will cross their legs at the sight of it.
Yeah. It's bad.
But yeah, everybody, sorry we're just like pumping through all these like character introductions and these things are happening, people are dying, because the pace of this movie is so fast.
Yeah, it's 2 days.
Yeah, the interior time is 2 days, and I think the film itself runs for what, hour 40?
I think so. I don't think we quite break 2 hours in this movie.
Yeah, and it's just really weird because, you know, all of the Scream films are generally like 2-ish hours long. Mm-hmm. Generally, they have a more slow, methodical pace, or they're dealing a lot more with like, okay, we're gonna develop after the first main kill to whet your appetites, you fucking gorehounds. We're gonna spend about an hour just developing our characters before we have another good kill, and then we're just going to ramp it up from there.
This one just, picks up and takes off and doesn't stop till the end.
Exactly. And we get introduced to all these characters, all this internal conflict, and it's like, okay, all right, fuck it. I'm sitting on the roller coaster. Let's take the ride.
A body count of 14, which means
it's the most of all of them, right?
Yeah, I think so. So it's like we got to watch, 14 different deaths, unique deaths. I mean, the first time we get
well, some of them are not that unique. Let's be real here.
But I'm talking like, within the Scream franchise. I think this is like the first one where we get, a knife in the head.
Yeah.
And that one was just
No. Scream 2, he got a knife in the head at the bathroom. That was the opening with Omar Epps.
Oh, in the ear, yeah.
Yeah.
But this one in the forehead.
The ear, forehead, it's still in the head.
It's still in the head, but the forehead one was actually Wes Craven's idea. He had seen like this medical documentary that someone got impaled in their forehead, and the guy was able to get up and drive himself to the hospital. So he kind of wanted to show that you could still technically...
I thought that was so much bullshit. I ain't even gonna lie.
I mean, I'm like, okay. I'm like, he makes it a couple of steps, crawls, and then he's gone.
No. He makes it a couple of steps, says, fuck Bruce Willis, and then he dies.
Yeah.
This movie is such a parody of itself. It's kind of trying to do the same thing Scream 3 did, except this one's kind of succeeding in that it's really self-aware of what fucking movie it is.
Yeah.
Scream 3 didn't know that it was supposed to be a self-parody, and this one is like, no. We are self-parody.
We're gonna tell you right off the bat that we are.
Yeah, because the Alison Brie that plays Rebecca Walters, the publicist, I'm gonna try to stop shifting in my chair and squeaking.
Thank you.
No promises. And yeah, Alison Brie, she plays Rebecca Walters, the publicist, and she is the Gale Weathers surrogate for this movie.
She's the Gale Weathers fangirl.
Yes. You were my 90s. I'm like, Jesus
And then Gale's
Christ.
like, I'm gonna punch you in the throat if you say like 2 more words.
It happens. I mean, Courtney Cox, she was the 90s, but
we have this woman who there's murders going on, and she's just like, awesome, this is our second book, and let's see what else happens in this boring ass town. And it's like
literally Gale Weathers from the first movie.
It's like, dude, calm down. People are dying.
Stop that. Literally Gale Weathers from the first movie. Don't even try and do that shit.
I like Gale Weathers a lot more.
Well, that's the point. That's the whole meta theme of this is, they're just like the characters you knew before, except they're either less likable, less charming, or less developed.
Yeah.
That's why Trevor is he's like Billy, except less developed.
Yeah.
Or Jill, she's like Sydney, except less charisma, less of a character. Or Gale, Rebecca, she's like Gale, except less charming.
Yeah.
And granted, Alison Brie is actually a very good actress. I've seen her in Community. She's
Yeah.
very fun. But her death is that build up. It's in the car. It's the cat and mouse game. And then she just gets stabbed. And I'm like, well, that's kind of a wasted character. I figured we'd get to the climax at least.
Well, that and even, watching horror movies and you think, if I were in this situation, what would I do? And I felt that her death, leading up to her death, was very realistic, where she's like, yeah, I'm in the hospital with her. Let me get my pen and pad. And she goes to, get her keys, and the horn goes off. And it's just like these little things that happen in life that you don't plan for in your head.
It's really simple, subtle things that build up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's my thing with this. There's a lot of kills in this movie that are really simple, subtle, really well set up. Best kill in this movie is Olivia's. They're on the phone. They're watching Shaun of the Dead. The killer's on there. It's like, how, it's like, what's your favorite scary movie? She's like, I don't have to talk to you. It's like, well, you can talk to me about the movie you're watching. What movie am I watching, asshole? Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, that's my absolute favorite scene of the movie.
Oh, it's the best kill.
Because,
easily.
It's just, it takes you kind of back to the first movie, where Casey Becker is making popcorn at home, gets the phone call, and she's kind of having this, back and forth with this stranger on the phone, and everything shifts when he said, well, I want to know who I'm watching. And it's just like, that kind of gives you the goosebumps kind of vibe of, oh shit, this is something bad. And we get that with, you're watching Shaun of the Dead, and I'm in the closet.
And then she opens the closet door.
I love that when he responds, I didn't say your closet.
And it's the switch reverse, and you can see Olivia being killed across the street through the window.
And it is so brutal.
It is like honestly, it's the best kill, and not even because like the gore brutality, but because okay, we have the setup. The killer's on the phone and he's watching you, right? And then he tells you, "Oh, I'm in the closet," and it's like, oh, it's that slow build. I was like, is he actually in the closet? Is he lying? You open up, oh, it's the reveal. Oh, thank God, he's not actually in there. Oh, he's probably watching from the trees. And this was just like the flyby, and then the twist of not your closet kills the friend. Big back into the surprise, back to the jump scare, and then it just ramps into this big intense fight, and that is a really well crafted scare that the rest of the movie doesn't come close to.
Well, like you were saying with the closet, where she opens the door, and it's just the clothes, but because the clothes are lit in a dark way, that could be Ghostface.
Yeah, it's that moment of like, oh wait, oh okay, it's not. Yeah, it's the thing where you're not sure right away.
Which I loved in the opener when we get the false openings. The very first one, when she finally flings the door open, and you think he's out there, but it's just the tree. It's like, I love the imagery where they're tricking you into thinking, this shape could be Ghostface, but it's not. It's just random everyday things that you see.
Yeah.
But because, it's nighttime or you're scared, everything looks like what it shouldn't be. And I love that scene. I love that he knows that they're watching Shaun of the Dead because the friend puts the phone on speaker.
It's this whole thing. It's a really well-crafted scene. I really, really like it. And it also brings me back to the fact that there's no fucking way Charlie could have killed Olivia.
Yeah, unless they're just going based off of, years of him being bullied and just the anger, and he's just,
It suddenly becomes the Hulk.
I guess.
Because I actually know the original ending to this, which is why the killer doesn't make sense. But we're gonna get to that.
Yes,
later.
I will let you ramble about that.
Yes. But right after we have Olivia's death, then we have Gale. She's on the scene, right?
Yeah.
Gale Weathers, attorney at large or detective at large, and she gets to the film club scene where they lay out the rules of the reboot.
Well, we actually have to scale back because after this first, very graphic death, she's telling Dewey, you gotta give me the information, we solve these together, and Dewey's like, I'm a sheriff now, I can't release this information to you anymore. And she's like, alright, whatever, I'm going rogue. So we're getting rogue Gale Weathers that is just like, yeah, if I have to bribe some high school kids...
eat my ass, these fucking cringe lords, my god. When I hear Gale Weathers saying, I'm going rogue, and I'm like, fuck off! Fuck off, alright? Just be like, whatever you say, sheriff, and just walk away. That's way better than like, alright, Dewey, then I guess I'm going rogue on your ass. I'm like, fuck off! My god, the cringe stabs my soul.
You love cringe. What are you talking about?
I've never watched The Office, sir, but please.
Oh, please, you've watched the entire thing.
But you watch it way more than me. But besides the point, so Gale, Gale detective at large. And she goes to the film club, whatever, meeting, which is basically a horror club. Like, they only talk about horror
club.
Cinema club, yes. And they only talk about horror flicks, as far as I can tell. And it only exists so we can have Charlie and Bobby do the Randy thing and explain the rules of the reboot. Where they're like, well, if you're original, then anybody can die. There's more brutal, more gory. And it's like, we've seen this built up at this point. The kills are a lot gorier. There's a lot more blood. There's definitely a thing where it's like, well, anybody can get attacked, and yeah. There's a lot of bullshit.
It's meta, so things from the past can come out.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, whatever. This scene only exists because you don't have Jamie Kennedy.
Yeah.
Because we never go back to this.
No.
And it only exists to set up that they're having a stab party.
No, a stabathon.
A stabathon, where they're going to marathon all the 7 stab movies.
In a barn.
In a barn to celebrate. And we go to the party. Gale is there to set up less subtle security cams than she had in the 90s.
I mean, it's mid-2000s, so yeah, the cameras are still...
The ones she had in the 90s movie was more subtle.
You mean the one in her purse?
Yeah, the one in her purse in Scream 3 was more subtle than this, Jesus Christ. But I'm going to bring this up. So there's 7 stab movies in the canon of this series, right? And they're all in the barn, they're watching them, right? They're going to turn them on, they're all going to have a bunch of drinks, there's going to be a party. And I'm like, okay, like, I've seen, like, people in... Texarkana, Texas, they That's where the town that dreaded sundown. That's where it's like the murders are based off and the Phantom Killer and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh no, they do that. Like once a year they'll watch the movie and yeah. So I'm like, okay, watching this. And then it says Stab 1, directed by Robert Rodriguez. I'm like, no, what the fuck?
And yes, it was.
Did he actually do that for Scream 2?
All the Stab movies that are portrayed in the franchise have been filmed by Robert Rodriguez.
Fucking really?
Yes.
That's amazing.
That's why it's like, they drop that Easter egg, but it's like, no, in all reality, he did direct and film those scenes.
I would love to see, I would love to see Stab 1 actually directed by Robert Rodriguez. I would love to see that. Just, this really just, self-aware, parody of Scream that's just done straight. I would love to see that. Also, how are there 70s? Because they look so fucking bad. But
well, that's the point. It's like a lot of, horror movies that just keep going and going and going. They just keep getting worse. But if you love the franchise, you go with it. But
you see where the roller coaster takes you.
But these, it's almost like a parody. It's like, it has to be horrible.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I can see Robert Rodriguez coming in and be like, fuck yeah, I'll direct something that looks,
looks like this.
Yeah.
Fuck it, I'll do it.
Just for kicks? Yeah, I'll do it.
And it's kind of great. And I'm sorry, I'm just so obsessed with, the in-universe Stab series. Because they sound fucking ridiculous.
Well, and you're also mind-blown that it was Robert Rodriguez.
I am mind-blown. I didn't think it was actually Robert Rodriguez.
It was.
But something else that's, really... that this, in particular, made me realize about this movie was the footage that's used, because it's the same as Scream 2, when it's, they're using it again. And I'm like, wait a minute. That's, that film grain, that old quality, all that stuff. And then watching the regular movie, I'm like, it just dawned on me in that moment. This film looks way more modern than the other Scream films because, it's done, in 2011 or whatever. But I'm like, it also doesn't have that feel of,
a 90s movie.
A 90s movie doesn't have that. It doesn't have that visual aesthetic.
It's a lot clean. Yeah, it's a lot clean because it's digital now. It doesn't have that kind of ooh, this is a 90s or early 2000 movie. It's like, no, we're in the future now where our movies are a lot crisper, HD, 4K.
Which I think doesn't work to the movie's aesthetic benefit in this movie in particular, because I think the first 3 Scream films have an aesthetic similarity because they're all done. Obviously, they're not on film. They're all done with the same hand of Wes Craven.
Yeah. And
they're all, for the most part, influenced by one way or the other by Kevin Williamson. But this one just feels so visually and tonally different than the other ones, because this one I think takes itself the least seriously.
Yeah.
And it's the one that also looks the most clean, right? Mm-hmm. Granted, Scream 3 looked like it was a made-for-TV movie, but this one also feels almost like one of those direct-to-streaming movies. You know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying, but it's I don't feel that way. I mean, I think we still get that kind of grit and grain when we see the camera footage.
Oh god, when he's looking through the stream. Yeah.
No, not that. Gale's camera footage, where Dewey finally gets to her when she's at the barn, and he's looking through the window in her car, and he's seeing the camera that she's holding.
Yeah, and
it's Ghostface, kind of creeping up behind her. It's
which, again, another homage to the first one. Yeah. They're at the party, and it's Gale with her camera, and I'm like, oh my god, Gale gets stabbed? Are we finally gonna lose a main character? And of course not! Well, fucking teases.
Well, this is actually the first movie that she's stabbed in. She doesn't get stabbed at 1 through 3.
Yeah, well, I understand that.
So that's why I was kind of ooh, is she gonna be the first of our, original cast to go? Because they've been...
pretty much untouchable.
Exactly.
Dewey was raised from the dead in the second movie.
Well, yeah. I mean, he was raised from the dead in the first movie, because they were originally going to kill him off when he gets stabbed in the back, but people, really liked him in the test audiences, that they were kind of like, we're going to keep Dewey and bring him back for the second movie.
It's, I could agree with that, Dewey's a likable character, but they laid out those rules, and they're not sticking to it, because it's oh, anybody from the original can die, you know, everybody's fair game.
Yeah.
And it's the thing with, like, Scream 3, where they said the same thing.
Yeah.
Oh, it's the rules of the trilogy. Anybody can die, including you, Sid. And none of the 3 main cast are even touched.
No.
And in this one, oh, wait, Gale gets stabbed? Is that going to be the thing? If Gale died at the party when Ghostface attacked her, I think that would have given a lot more weight to the ending of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because, okay, Gale doesn't die. We're going to get to the climax later where Sydney gets stabbed, but you know Sydney's not going to die now.
No.
If Gale ain't going to die, Sydney ain't going to fucking die.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. But neither here nor there. Gale gets stabbed. The kids freak out. They all run away. They go to Kirby's house.
Mm-hmm.
The characters that matter go to Kirby's house.
Yes.
And they're there. They're hanging out. Charlie's about to get some of that Hayden Panettiere ass. And then Trevor shows up.
Yeah.
Fucking Trevor. Cockblock extraordinaire.
No one wants that guy around.
No one wants that guy around.
Always just popping up and showing up, you know.
Unannounced. All right on time.
Yeah.
Always in a perfect position to be a suspect.
Yeah.
Fucking red herring. Fuck Trevor on every level. I wrote that on my notes, by the way. Trevor sucks on every level.
Yeah, he actually did.
Yeah. And when they're there and they're watching the movies, because Bobby wants to finish the Scream franchise, or the Stab movies.
Yeah.
Where are their parents?
Well, the Scream movie. There's never any parents in the scene.
No. Like, we see Billy's parents. Billy's parents play a major role. They're the killers in the second one. We see Sydney's parents.
But think about it. In the first movie,
We see Casey Becker's parents. They show up like right after
afterwards. Yes.
Where are Kirby's parents?
But Sydney's dad travels for work. Stu's parents are on this extended vacation.
I'm convinced Stu killed them. All right. I'm convinced Billy killed them and shoved them under the floorboards. All right.
He could have. It was crazy enough.
But
it's a Scream movie. There's never parents.
Jill's mom is in this. Like what? Something Roberts. Rachel, is that her name?
I think her name was Rachel.
It's like Aunt Rachel or something like that. And she's in this movie, and she dies right away. What the fuck is this?
Not like right away, but...
I mean, it's some bullshit. She gets stabbed through a mail slot.
Yeah, that one was kind of like, oof.
But, yeah, so we're getting into this like...
Aunt Kate.
Aunt Kate.
Kate Roberts.
We get into this whole thing. Kate dies. You know, Sydney's at Kirby's house, or Sydney runs to Kirby's house after Kate gets murdered.
Yeah, she goes upstairs to, check on Jill, and she sees that Jill, left open her laptop with showing, her texting thing.
With Trevor, and she's like, oh, Trevor's the killer. It's just like Bobby. Or
Bobby.
Billy.
I'm
it's
like,
just like Billy.
No, it's a text, chat between her and Kirby where she's like, hey, I'm on my way to your house. So you're saying, okay, she's taken off. She's not been in the house. That's how we have, the kills going on. They're at the house, which Jill kills her mom, which is fucked.
Yeah.
It's just like, damn, Jill, you like your own mom, but we get more information why in the climax, which I know the Dean's probably going to act up. Or not act up, act out.
Oh, look, the climax sucks. Because it leads up to another, really good moment because, killer's loose in the house.
Yes.
Right? Sydney runs up and she's trying to save Jill from the killers that's roaming around the house. And then Sydney and Kirby's now locked in the greenhouse or whatever the fuck. And she can see Charlie's tied up outside and the killer's on the phone.
Which is a kickback to Steve Orth, who's tied up in the backyard, and it's, if you don't answer these questions right, I'm going to kill him.
And this is where Kirby, flexes the themes of the movie, man. Because the final question is, what classic film...
remake.
What classic film... Okay. What was the remake of the groundbreaking horror film? And Kirby just lists off 30 fucking movies. Just pounds through all of them. And it's it becomes baffling because, boo, we were there.
Yeah.
These movies were coming out. We were aware. We were watching in the theaters. Were you aware of how many?
It's tons.
Reboots and remakes were happening.
I mean, I thought you were going to be more impressed by one of the questions being Peeping Tom.
Yeah.
Which was an episode that you'd wanted to do, I think, our first year that we did the podcast.
Yeah, because it's that and Psycho are like the two back-to-back slasher film,
But Peeping Tom came out, I think.
It's the same year, 1960, but it came out earlier in Britain. But it's also another thing where you can make pedantic arguments that they're not slasher flicks.
Yeah.
Like, the first quote-unquote slasher flick, you can even credit to, like, Friday the 13th.
Mm-hmm.
Because Halloween is in the same vein of, like, Peeping Tom, Psycho, whatever, where they're, like, proto-slashers. They have the same basic core elements.
And it's
singular
also
killer, POV perspective.
Yeah.
And they're going through, and there's a series of murders. But with Friday the 13th, the first one, that's when it's like, okay, this is actually, like, how all these slashers later really stole from. Like, don't get me wrong, Friday the 13th copied Halloween, but then every slasher after copied Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
But for that, Kirby would have to get into a very pedantic film culture argument with some serial killer over the phone. I don't think she would want to do that. But besides the point. But she lists off like 30 fucking movies. That's insane to me, because like, this was in 2011. They were not done making remakes and reboots of movies yet. We had two Black Christmas remakes in a 10-year period.
Yeah.
The fuck?
I know. Which leads to Kirby feeling like she won the game. I'm going to go outside and I'm going to help Charlie. And Charlie's just like, okay, thank you so much. And
step.
You finally noticed me after all this time. And now I'm a crazy serial killer, so I can't love you. I gotta kill you.
Step.
Exactly.
Step.
And it's just
fucking
like,
Charlie.
yeah, like, fuck you, Charlie.
And then we get to the grand reveal, right? Where Jill reveals herself to be the killer. They corner Sid. They show her that.
They bring out Trevor.
Tied up exactly like her dad was tied up. And now they're
and dressed in the same way that her dad was dressed.
And it's gonna be the thing where they're finally gonna fulfill Stu and Billy's plan. They're gonna frame it all on Trevor. But then Jill, doing exactly what Bobby was probably actually gonna do and frame Stu. She frames
Billy, not Bobby.
Billy, whatever that Billy was gonna do, and was gonna kill Stu. She kills Charlie, and she's gonna frame Charlie and Trevor as being the psycho killers, and they have the films, and it's all meta commentary, and blah, blah, blah.
And you've got, Charlie jumping up and down, hyping himself to get stabbed in the shoulder, and he's like, yeah, like Billy and Stu, and it's just like, dude, you guys are nothing like Billy and Stu. You're playing off of their idea 20-something years ago.
And that's the thing. Okay. They're revealed as the killers, Charlie and Jill.
Yeah.
I will go on record, their motives are garbage. Charlie has no motive other than he wants to plow Emma Roberts.
And he wants to be like Billy and Stu. That's it.
To reiterate, he's doing this because he wants to fuck Jill.
And he wants to have his own movie.
Where Randy gets Sid, where the geek gets the girl.
Yes.
Charlie wants to bang Jill.
Yes.
I want to make it abundantly clear that is the basis of his motive.
We hear you.
Yes. Jill's motive is she wants to be Instagram famous.
Yes.
Is that bad?
I mean, that doesn't get more, mid-2000s than that. Insta famous, and yeah, I want to get that girl, and I'm kind of crazy, and I think I'd be crazy enough to kill for her.
And I love when Jill's explaining it, where she's like, I want to be like you, except I'm the survivor girl, I blah, 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 I make the narrative, I make the movies. And Sydney actively looks really confused.
She's like, the fuck? What is going on?
She's like, at least in my movie, like, Billy and Stu kind of made sense. Billy had a motive.
Yeah.
You're weird. Can I get out of this, West? Am I done? Can we cut the scene? And it just keeps going.
Yeah.
Her speech is like 10 minutes long.
Yeah, this monologue does not stop.
Oh, God. And here's the thing. With this climax, because I found out, the actual reveal. And the reveal was going to be that Trevor was supposed to be in the Charlie position. And Charlie was supposed to die when Kirby and all that stuff. But I guess they changed it for some reason. I don't know why. It might have been a thing where, we don't want to do the repeat where we're going to have Trevor and Billy be the exact same character.
Yeah.
But they still have Trevor play Billy as the exact same character, except obviously less of a character.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, is there...
Maybe they thought it was just too meta, and they're like, we can't go back to the original, so we're gonna kind of give it a spin.
Well, that's the other thing, because thinking about it, they had to have done that because the stunt person is... Okay, this is, again, something so nitpicky that it obviously doesn't matter, because it generally doesn't matter, but the stunt person's, like, way bigger than these people could be,
Yeah.
and the stunt person is doing things that neither I can not see Charlie nor Jill actively being able to do.
Well, I mean, that, and you could just tell the height difference. It's just this huge thing where, oh, here comes Ghostface, and he looks like he's, 2 times bigger than Sydney, but then you see Jill and Charlie, and it's like, well, no, they look like smaller high school students, so it's like, how is that working?
It's really bad in the climax, because at first I'm like, okay, well, Charlie, guy, whatever, and it's like, in some of the scenes you don't really see him next to people for scale, and then when he comes up and he kisses Jill, you can tell he's like shorter than Emma Roberts.
Yeah, so it's like, even if he's in a pair of boots, it's not going to be that much lift.
Yeah, and it's, again, everybody out there, I understand this is a little nitpicky and pedantic, but it really breaks the immersion.
It's not nitpicky, because we see Trevor, and Trevor's, bigger than Jill. I think he even makes the comment when he meets Sydney for the first time. He's like, you're a lot smaller than I imagined. So it's like, okay, seeing the stature of the two of them fighting, okay, Sydney's going to be a lot shorter than Ghostface or Trevor. So, yeah, I think that's where they kind of goofed on it, where Ghostface looks like an adult person in the costume.
Mm.
And then we see Jill and Charlie, and it's just like, you guys are probably 5...
I think
5'4".
It's like between the two of them, it's like 5'5" and like 5'8" respectively, and it's like, yeah, they just don't look the part. They just don't look imposing in any way. Like with Jill holding a knife to Sydney, I'm like, I still think Sydney with a stab wound could probably still like
take you
or get away.
Yeah,
and I mean, like, yeah, Charlie, sure. He's got that crazy factor, but I'm like, no, I can't see him being able to overpower people in a way where he'd be able to kill all these people. Because let's be honest, he's doing all the killing. Because we have all the setup where Jill is supposed to be with Kirby or with Olivia, and then the killings are happening around her because she's making alibis for herself. And I'm like...
And it's interesting, like, when the first 2 girls die in the beginning of the movie, and everyone's phone is going off in school, and they're talking, like, the teacher's like, all right, I'll take the bait. What's going on? Why is everyone getting messages? Jill's the only one that doesn't get that message.
Yeah, because she sent it.
So it's like, okay, so we start to see, little things here and there. But it's like, yeah, I can't see Charlie being strong enough to just throw around Olivia in her room and completely destroy her. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of physicality. Him taking on Sydney. I mean, Sydney gets in some really good licks on that fight.
Well, she knocks him out, and then he just pops up and disappears into the darkness.
Yeah, and it's
with
just
the police not being able to see them, even though they're staring right at him, for God's sake.
But we see him at the hospital in the next scene when Rebecca gets thrown onto the news van. And, I mean, she kicks him square in the face, and you'd think there'd be a mark, or he would have broken his nose or something. He's got nothing on his face.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's so immersion-breaking just seeing these two characters be it, because... like, they just don't match up one with the killer. And the other thing is, the motive is just so blah. Like, yeah, Roman's motive in Scream 3 is, so retcon bullshit that it's like, oh god, just fucking eat me. But at least I could take that as, alright, this is a reasonable motive for a killer to proceed to do his crimes.
Yeah.
These ones, I don't feel like these are reasonable steps to be taken, because Scream 1, Stu, or Billy, I remembered his name this time, Billy is on a revenge trip because Sydney's mom broke up his parents, and he has abandonment issues, and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Alright, he kills the woman that broke up his family, and then, a year later, he's like, no, that's not good enough, I'm gonna go on revenge, and then he recruits Stu because Stu is dumb and has peer pressure.
Well, that, and, isn't it also the ultimate betrayal to Sydney? It's like, okay, your mom did this to me. I'm gonna act completely normal and kill your mother, date you, and then finally kill you and let you know before it, hey, this whole time that you thought we were this happy couple, I've been plotting this against you because your mom broke up my family.
Exactly.
It's like how fucked does that get?
Billy has reasonable motive to go on this revenge trip. Revenge. Mm-hmm. I can understand his motivations as the story progresses. I'm like, okay, got you. Even in Scream 2, Mickey, just a fucking crazy person. Mm-hmm. Motive is bullshit, whatever. But Mrs. Loomis, I can understand that.
Yeah.
You killed my son, so I'm going to ruin everything for you, blah, blah, blah. And I recruited Mickey, who is the meta slave to yada, yada.
Yeah. And
then it's like, Roman, all right, your mom abandoned me, so I orchestrated her death, and then it kind of went out of hand. And now I've seen you've done nothing but profit off of what I've done to you, so I will kill you for it, Yeah. Not only has your mother, abandoned me, but because of her death, she has made you greater than I will ever be. So, okay, get it. In this, fuck both of these people. Their motives aren't shit.
No.
It's not revenge. It's not connected to Sydney, really. It's what she symbolizes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Jill, you did not need Sydney, Gale, and Dewey here to do this. Like, you could have just orchestrated a serial killing thing, and it could have just been a straight reboot without Sydney, Dewey, and Gale, and just been another meta commentary.
Yeah. All you had to do was survive. That's it.
She could have just staged, like, Trevor being she could have just staged it and she only had to kill, like, 3 fucking people. Trevor, Charlie, and, Kirby. Yeah, okay, Trevor, Charlie, Kirby, and Olivia. And then just set herself and be like, I don't know what happened. Trevor went wild in the house and just started, killing people.
But to kick it back to the first movie, they're gonna see that his hands have been bound. He's been, he's got tape residue on him.
He got shot in the cock.
He did. That was like...
And then got shot in the head.
Yeah, that was rough.
Okay. Now to poke holes in Jill's plan. Because how she sets it up is she shoots Trevor in the junk and shoots him in the head, kills him. Yeah. Right? And then she stabs Charlie in the heart. Just one stab wound, right?
Yeah, she, shoulder me. And she's like, all right. And she stabs him in the heart. And he's like, oh, my heart. And then he drops. He's gone.
Okay. So, and then she beats the shit out of herself. And it stages...
Well, she stabs Sydney, was it twice?
Stabs her in the stomach twice. And Sydney collapses, goes for dead.
And then this is when we get, the scene of all scenes.
Jill stabs herself in the shoulder. She grabs Trevor and tears off some of her own hair and scratches her face to make it look like defensive wounds.
Yep.
Throws herself into a picture, and then through a table, and then crawls next to Sydney, right?
And then even places her hand the same way that Sydney, fell with hers.
The symbolic gesture.
I guess you gotta be kidding me.
But here's the thing. So how is her thing gonna play out? So she comes in. And she was like, yeah, Charlie stabbed me. And then Trevor, I tried to get away and they beat me up. And then, I was left for dead. And then Charlie, and then what? Charlie shot Stu in the head and the junk. And Trevor stabbed Charlie in the heart. So Trevor stabbed Charlie in the heart. And then Charlie shot him in the junk and then capped him in the head on accident as he was falling to his death. Because that death was pretty instantaneous from what it looked like on screen.
Yeah, I have no idea. And I mean...
And was this before or after they stabbed Sydney twice?
Exactly. And I mean, even with Trevor's death, he's shot in the head while he's laying on the ground. So it's like, when they come and inspect the bodies, they're going to know this is exactly where he died. Unless, Charlie with his knife wound to the heart was able to stagger over, his body on the ground and just put one off in his head. It's just like, it doesn't really make too much sense.
Yeah, I mean, it is, I guess it's pointing facts in people's, I guess even our own pedantic reading of Stu and Billy's plan where it was like, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
But this is, the pedantic thing of, this killing thing doesn't actually work. It's one of the things where she put way too much into it.
Yes.
If she made it something simple where it's like, Charlie shot Trevor in the chest like a few times. Mm-hmm. And, Charlie has a couple of superficial ones. If she stabbed him like Billy stabbed Stu, that would have worked, He just bled out, right? Yeah.
Could have. But no, she was very theatrical. And, I mean, we thought Scream 2 with them on the stage was theatrical. I mean, this was its own Broadway show, theatric.
it was something. But that's not where the movie ends.
No, it's not, because we still have one more fight scene, because if you think this house party scene is not enough of a fight, it moves on to the hospital.
Okay. The hospital sucks, right? Can we agree on that?
It's also a horror movie hospital where there's nobody working.
Yes.
And it's badly lit.
Yes.
It's like, I've been in hospitals at night. It's never that dark.
And there's always people.
Yeah, there's always people walking around, nurses, doctors.
And Woodsboro isn't like, oh, it's a small country town. I'm like, no, like, we see their downtown. There's a bunch of fucking people.
Yeah.
There's how many reporters just lined up outside the hospital doing interviews with Dewey and shit. Like, it's a pretty decent sized town.
Yeah.
There's more than one nurse on duty.
Yeah.
And also, they have their own private
hospital rooms,
where there's no light. It's dimly lit. It's all lit super creepy. Whatever.
Dewey's having his kind of like an interview with Jill, where he's kind of getting her story from her, and she's got, the fake tears in her eyes, and she's like, yeah, I'd love to write a story about this someday with Gale and our matching wounds. And I'm just like, well, how would she know that?
Already gave herself away.
Yeah,
right?
And then it's like, Dewey, he's just like, oh, that's very sweet. I think the two of you should write a book.
And he eats paint chips.
So he goes and he relays the story to Gale, and Gale's the one where it's like, how does she know that I got stabbed and where I got stabbed?
And then Dewey's like, oh my god, and goes to save Sid.
Yeah.
And Jill's all okay. So Jill beat the shit out of herself, right? Stabbed herself stabbed herself in the shoulder.
I mean, I will say,
her face against the wall.
I will say, good acting on the stabbing of the shoulder where she jumps into the wall with the blade. I mean, the way she portrays it, it looks like, yeah, that hurt.
It was a good effect, and she did play it well. But here's the thing: she comes in. Sydney just got out of surgery. Yes, she's doped up or whatever. But Jill's throwing her ass around.
Well, also, Dewey's the one that tells Jill, it's kind of touch and go, but Sydney might make it. She's okay. And then Jill's just like, oh, fuck, I thought I killed her at the house. And no, she's here.
And
she's going to tell everybody that I'm the killer.
And it's like, Jill now has to kill Sydney, but now she does it, then there's no way she can say Trevor and Charlie did it. She has to implicate herself and become the killer, right?
Yeah.
And they go in, they have this final climactic fight scene with Sydney, but Dewey comes in at just the right time, distracts Jill. Jill gets the gun, then Deputy Judy and Gale come in, it becomes this whole thing.
Well, you're also forgetting Jill beats the shit out of Dewey with a bedpan.
Yes.
And you would think with that, the broken glass, because she sends Sydney flying into a medicine cabinet. No one comes running. No one hears the glass breaking or the bedpan, the steel bedpan.
And Dewey is running, yelling into his radio.
Yeah, it's like nobody is coming to help.
The hospitals have security guards, right?
They should. I mean, they might just be like on the ground floor, but
just not in horror movies, right?
Yeah, I mean, there should be a nurse at the station that's able to call down and say, "Hey, we need help on this floor," but that would require having a nurse on that floor because it looks like they're just the only ones there spending the night.
Could you imagine, Sydney rolls in and they're just like, all right, we need to get her into an emergency ward. Oh, wait a minute. Put her in the horror movie ward. Mm-hmm. Well, what's the horror movie ward? Oh, it's really badly lit. There's no one there. Also, we have a bunch of windows that don't close. And it blows the curtains spookily, so it always looks like there's somebody entering the room. Oh, okay. Is that's the Michael Myers wing, right? Yeah. Right after the Texas one.
Yeah.
Like, the fuck?
Yeah, and then we have Gale come because she now knows that Sydney's in trouble.
And Gale's been, like, laid up for the entire, like, climax of the movie with a stab wound to the shoulder, right?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, Jill stabbed in the shoulder, Gale stabbed in the shoulder, and Gale's like, I'm laid up, man, I'm fucked. And Jill's like, I mean, I did also throw myself through a window and a table and, really win at myself, but you know what? I got this. I'm gonna brush this off and go and bench Sid like the Ultimate Warrior and throw her through some shit.
mean, she's also like 16, 17, so she's got, all that energy.
That youth.
It's the youth, yeah. Now, you and I, we go grocery shopping and it's like, my God, I gotta lay down for like a couple of days.
I'm done.
I'm tired.
It's over. I bring the cat food in and it's like, that threw my back out. It's done.
Yeah.
But this happens and, Deputy Judy comes in, she gets shot, she's down from the counter, everybody's like, oh my god.
She takes the bullet for Gale. She protects her and throws her, over the side of the bed. And then we have, Sydney in the background turning on what is it, defibrillator?
Defibrillator, and my god, when Jill is like, any last words, Gale? And Gale's like, I have one.
Clear.
And Sydney's like, and Jill's like, clear, and Sydney's like, clear, and hits her with the defibrillator, and I
fucking loved it.
I died of cringe. It hurt.
I loved it.
Oh
I was like,
god, it's so cheesy.
Get her. It was a good amount of cheese for me.
Okay. I guess I won't say cringe, but that right there was that's when this movie was full self-aware cheese.
Yeah.
That's when I was like, this movie's a comedy. That's all this is now. This is a comedy. This is a spoof. This is the scary movie of the Scream series. I thought that was 3. No, it is 4. But yeah,
and then we get Sydney standing above her, and she's like, "One rule, Jill: don't fuck with the original." I was like, "That's right. You don't mess with Sidney Prescott."
And that's the whole meta commentary of the film, where you can make the reboots, you can make the remakes, but they just don't stand up to the original because the original had magic and blah blah blah. And it's like, but then the whole movie just kind of blah. Like, the movie, like, it finally hits the credits, and I have this feeling of blah. Like, I enjoyed it as a dumb slasher, turn my head off and just, like, ride the ride, and then the climax happens, and I'm like, well, that pulls me out of the narrative. And then we're at the hospital, and the hospital is like, blah.
You just want to do that.
Blah. I mean, look, I understand this. You really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I'll say it too. It is a fun movie. But you gotta see where I'm coming from here. Like, the climax at the party with the killer reveal in the hospital just really makes the rest of the movie feel so weird, right? Because they feel so mishmashed with everything else in the film.
A little bit, but I like the twist. I like that they kind of made it modern day, where the killing isn't because, your mom did something to my family or to me or to this. It's, I basically want to be insta-famous, and it's kind of like, it goes with the time. And it's like, yeah, I could totally see someone being crazy enough where they're going to do something like this so they have the spotlight. And after the hospital scene where they go back to the front of the hospital, and it's all the newscasters getting ready for, like, the early morning broadcasts, and they're talking about, we're going to be live with Jill Roberts, the sole survivor of this, the hero of this, and then it's just like, okay, that's going to turn into its own story when they find out, no, Jill was really the villain all along. That would have been interesting to see.
Well, that's Gale's new book.
Exactly.
And yeah, so Scream 4. Your thoughts on this? Because we've already probably made it abundantly clear you are favoring on good, very good of the series.
Yeah, I really like this movie. Wasn't too crazy about the killers, but I like that we basically go back home. It's meta. It's a wild ride. It doesn't stop. It just, full momentum the entire time. Our characters make it through once again. It's just an interesting dynamic to see, and it also makes it special because this is Wes Craven's last movie.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this movie it's not great. It's good, and then we get the ending, and then it's fine.
Yeah.
But I would say, as Wes Craven's final entry into the Scream series, and his final entry is into filmmaking, I would say this is definitely in like the good category of his career. He did not go out with a bad movie.
No,
I can definitely say that.
And I was kind of worried about what you would think about this movie, and I'm surprised you think it's good.
Yeah. It's one of those things where the ending, for me, just falls so flat.
Yeah.
But everything else around it's always nice to see, Sidney Gale Dewey show up. And, Kevin Williamson came back to write, and it has that same meta 90s era quality to it. Yeah. I'm like, okay. It has some good throwbacks. There are comedy bits, Yeah, some of the kills fall super flat and are dumb, but some of them, like the Olivia one, really harken back. I think Kirby actually is a very good and entertaining character. She feels the most like a Scream character.
We also don't see her die, so maybe she'll be back for Scream 5.
Again, to reiterate on the fuck this meta bullshit, no. It's not, she is not Stu. Stop it.
Well, she's not Stu, but I'm just saying, she could come back.
We'll see. But that's the thing. Like, the movie overall, I can say is a good movie. If I had to rank it with the ones we've seen so far...
Well, we can't rank it yet. We're going to do that on the next episode.
Oh, on the final episode of the Scream Retro.
That's right.
Because next episode is going to be Scream 5.
Which we are seeing in 2 days at the time of this recording.
Yes, we are. And, okay. I don't want you to go into your weird conspiracy theories, because there's a lot, and we don't have a lot of time.
Oh, but it's okay when you do it.
Well, yeah, because mine are entertaining. But expectations for the new film?
Very high.
Very high?
Very high. The reviews are coming in, and they're very good. So, I'm hoping that this is going to be, knock it out of the ballpark.
Okay. I would hope for the best, but I'm one of those guys, hope for the best, expect the worst.
Yeah.
So, I'll say this is probably... I don't think I'm going to enjoy this as much as, say, like, Spider-Man or something.
Well, obviously, it's 2 separate movies.
Yeah, I understand that, but I'm like, as a movie-going experience. But I think... You know what? I think it's definitely going to be better than Scream 3. I think it'll probably be... better than Scream, 2. I would say Scream 5 at least looks like a pretty good movie from what I've seen of it.
And I mean, with this movie, we go home and it seems like we're going back to Woodsboro again. I'm saying it right now, Gale and Dewey die in this. I don't know.
Okay, how about this? For Scream 5, bet. Right now, live on air, or yes, not live, but recorded on air.
Recorded on air, yes.
So, out of the 3 leads, Sydney, Gale, Dewey, do you think any of them die in this movie?
Do I think they're gonna die, or if one dies, who would it be?
Okay. Do you think they're gonna die? Because I think they're gonna die. And I know who, and I think I feel strongest out of the one of them, which is gonna die.
Okay, I think maybe one of them might die, and I have a feeling who it might be.
Alright, I'm saying Gale Weathers is gonna be dead in Scream 5.
I'm saying Dewey.
Poor Dewey.
I don't want him to, I don't want Gale to, I don't want Sydney to, but if one did, I would think that it might be Dewey.
But we shall see.
We shall.
Next week on the Film Club.
That's right. And if you want to follow us on a different platform than you currently are, you can find us on Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.
Yeah, you can go to our YouTube channel, In the Frame, where you can find this podcast. And that's our YouTube channel, In the Frame. Subscribe, leave comments, do stuff. It's really nice. We have a lot of content on there. Listen, send me presents.
Don't send them presents. But if you want to follow us on social media, we're on Instagram and Facebook at the Film Club Podcast. And with that,
see you next week at the Film Club.
Peace.